The evidentiary files in the murder case of King Von have now been made public, and in case you missed it, the man who killed King Von even has a section in the file containing his statements to Von. I felt as though I was merely defending my younger brother. When you eventually discovered that King Von was the one who, how did you feel? Brian would still be alive if he hadn't done that foolish thing last night, I thought. I was like that. However, I said, I don't know what kind of person I am. As if I'm a modest person. I don't mean any disrespect when I say that, because I could easily get on with that kind of stuff and be the clout-chasing kind, which I'm not familiar with. Despite my humility, it's like, they never did pop that off. That would never have occurred in that manner. However, that same man was also mentioned in the evidence files. Tim's disclosure of King Von's final remarks, LOL. However, there were some similarities with the entire murder case as well. Bao, King Von's cousin, even mentioned that the night it occurred was odd. He was allowed to walk by the security guard. You are compensated. He is compensated to provide protection. How did you allow him to approach and engage in combat? You should not allow him to fight. He should not be touching anyone. Guard for security. You make sure Kwando leaves, if nothing else. You make sure they go, regardless of who else they were with. The reason you're here is because you let him walk over someone. The man making the money and his entourage are the reason why everyone is in this parking lot. However, it's not official with that security guard. He canceled his Instagram account for that reason. Therefore, I firmly believe that foul play is involved. I'm not sure where it's coming from, but I do believe that something strange is happening. This is in response to the body camera film that was made public, which shows everyone shouting, panicking, and wondering what's going on while Van's bodyguards are just sitting there doing nothing. Protecting him. Brother, come on over here. You had better keep an eye on my brother. All right. Hello. Hello. Hurry up. Relax. Alongside me. All right. All right. Hey. Exit the vehicle. Get out of the vehicle. I was able to visit the hospital. Yes, you will be taken to the hospital by us. A string of evidence stating there are a lot of holes in the passing of King Von would emerge as a result of this getting viral online. If you really look into it, you'll see it. For all the murder cases he was going to deal with, he would be the one to stage his own demise, if anything. As stated in the Trap Lore Ross King Von video, King Von was tied into the main part of FBG Duck's assassination after he paid O-Block members $100,000 in Diamond O-Block chains to complete the hit, which included multiple other deaths in Chicago. However, at this point, close friends and family of F tweeted, Van survived his 2 operations, woke up yelling for his gun, fell into shock, and died. There was only one more procedure left for him. Von also survived 2 operations. He still needed 3 procedures. He survived 2 operations. Following the second operation, he leaped from the bed and began to fight the nurse. He asked the nurse where his gun was, and he went because he was shocked. He was undergoing surgery. How Kayla learned about several hours later. Yes. He resisted the nurse, I guess. She was the one who informed me that his mother was unaware of that, because she was present at the hospital. How do you know what's happening there? Additionally, this is connected to the recently made public King Von murder case files, which indicate that Von was still alive following the gunshot wound. Even at the hospital, he was still alive. However, as this information was only recently made public, many people are curious as to how Bowie knew that he had never even owned a firearm during the interview in which Von woke up in shock and searched for a firearm that had never been there. As you mentioned, there was no justification whatsoever for Von to be hanging out with that man in the King Von incident. As if there weren't any, particularly when he was secure. Someone ought to have jumped in, you know. King should never have done it, but all of them did it after Blad. They would have been more prepared in Chicago, in my opinion. Man, I'm sad. Sad. I mean, everyone is kind of hanging up over the King Von situation at the moment. That's me up, dude. Because, you know, I like King Von. Because of this, the tale is rather unclear. However, after looking into it more, you genuinely comprehend the truth when you see the gaps in the narrative. King Von and his group were getting ready to go to a club in Atlanta for the album's release party on November 5th, 2020. It was intended to be a huge celebration of King Von's life and accomplishments. Nobody anticipated how brief it would be. Van had a lot of enemies. He was aware of the dangers of being exposed as inadequate in public, having grown up in a dangerous environment like O-Block. In order to keep an eye on him, Vaughn recruited 20 security guards and 15 to 20 O-Block members, who were all dispersed throughout 8 vehicles that attended the celebration. Even 100 K-Track, King Von's own manager, highlighted the drastic security precautions Vaughn implemented. One security that travels with Vaughn is with me, and he brings 2 additional security with him. Do you understand what I mean? In a proof truck, Vaughn travels. Furthermore, his men are security, dude. Every day, he travels with 10 to 15 men. More than any security, they love and care for Vaughn. I believe there are 8 or 10 automobiles in front of us. 20 to 25 on the entourage. Huh? However, a lot of people are unaware that something happened in the middle of the night. While everyone else was enjoying themselves, King Von began to act very strangely. While everyone was celebrating the success of Van's CD, he would disappear into a side room of the club and use his cell phone, where it is said that he began receiving text messages from Quando Rondo, an NBA YoungBoy affiliate. Vaughn and his group started leaving the club at about 2:30 in the morning. Everyone had only planned to spend the night at the hotel and Airbnb, but King Von had other ideas and kept them to himself. We're heading to the hotel and Airbnb since that's standard procedure, so everyone is okay with us leaving the club. He was not paid for the club he visited after hours. I didn't acknowledge his team, and they didn't realize that their decision had entirely vanished. King Von instructed his driver to proceed to the Monaco Lounge, another club, while the rest of the crew headed to the Airbnb. This would be the first of many choices that ultimately led to King Von's downfall. Van went to the venue by himself, while everyone else that was with us drove to the Airbnb. Later, we received a call from someone in the car saying, "Hey bro, we're here." In fact, I believe his DJ said, "Hey bro, you know we're here alone. Like, where are you guys?" And everyone was diverted to that location. Only when King Von reached the new club did the individuals in his truck, for whatever reason, inform the other members of the squad that the plans had been altered. When the other members of the team learned, they quickly started driving to the new club after making U-turns in their vehicles. Van's manager recognized there was a problem with Vaughn as soon as he arrived in Monaco. He was behaving quite silent, seated on his phone in the corner of his Escalade with the hood up. Vaughn remained seated while Van's crew prepared to enter the new club for a half hour. Van wasn't himself for some reason. The best performer I've ever seen in my life, I swear to you, was off that night for whatever reason. He remained in the automobile for about 30 to 35 minutes. At this point, Van's manager, 100 K-Track, would stop over to see how he was doing. Van eventually consented to enter the lounge, but his crew was required to leave their guns in their automobiles because of Monaco's club regulations. To make sure everything was safe, they would initially assign security to patrol the club. I approached the vehicle he was in. "Hey." Van got into the passenger seat, I said. "Yo, Vaughn, bro, what's going on?" I ask. "Like, let's go. Everyone is waiting." "All right, let's go," he said. "We're letting security know that it's time to enter." Vaughn is prepared. "Do you understand what I mean? We've spent too much time here. Let's enter the club." They inspect the location, enter, look outside, and ensure there are no the actual threat, however, was in the parking lot outside. This is because rapper Quando Rondo and a few members of his own gang were attempting to sleep for a brief while. One of Vaughn's security officers, however, was tasked with patrolling the parking lot and discovered Quando Rondo dozing off in his vehicle. After that, he would approach King Von and say, "Did you know Quando is here?" One of his homeboys, approached the car just before we entered the club and said, "Hey, so, and so's here." Vaughn simply leaped to his feet, saying, "Oh, hurry up. Come on." King Von responded immediately, leaping from the truck and attempting to approach Quando Rondo, who was obviously texting him back and forth. Despite Van's team's best efforts to calm him down and prevent a disturbance, he persisted. King Von left, around to the white car's front end. He started striking at Quando right away. He leaped to his feet and exited the vehicle. I doubt Vaughn even knew where such and such was by the time he leaped off the automobile. He simply leaped from the vehicle. He ran across so, and so. He started fighting as soon as he ran into such and so. Only a few seconds into the fight, Lil Tim, Kwando's best friend, walked around the back of the white car with his gun and proceeded to hit King Von several times in the body in an attempt to save Kwand, his own best friend. The manager of King Von was then struck once in the leg as well. A few of Van's group members were still wearing straps. They would immediately lash out at LOL Tim, causing him to collapse just a few feet away. It became insane at this point, though. Just down the street, 2 off-duty security policemen were working while the noise clipped in the neighborhood. They would all pull up onto the scene, with one on-duty cop arriving from the opposite direction. They would fire several bullets into the area where it was falling on a 321 count, tragically striking and killing one of King Von's gang members. Von used Kwando as a shield while lying in the middle of the road during this time. However, other people think Kwando was actually trying to grab Von's chain while holding him down. Was he attempting to steal Van's chain? To tell the truth, I don't believe Veroe was wearing any jewelry. And Von was really clinging to him from the people that were a little bit closer. You're not going nowhere, man. You heal like... He's extremely powerful, even after getting hurt. It seemed as though he was actually holding him. But the rush to save King Van's life started as soon as the situation calmed down and people stopped shooting. In order to pick up King Von and attempt to get him into the getaway car, his best friend and closest friend, Mu, would dash into the center of the road and knock Kwando out of his way. After that, Kwando and his group would depart in the white car, where they would pick up Little Tim and take him into the rear seat, while Van's group would follow suit. Item: lending a hand. King Von is loaded into the getaway vehicle by Mu. The members who were in the car with King Von spoke up and shared Van's final remarks, in which Von attempted to keep everyone positive by reassuring them that he would be alright, even though he had been struck 4 times. As he was driving, well, I wasn't there myself. Von was the one who said, "Hey, calm down," as the man in the car with him began to worry. "Reduce your speed. Relax. I'm going to do well. Get me to the hospital, please." In all honesty, we all believed that based on what I was told by the individuals in the car and how he was acting during that situation, he would. Been alright. Von was hurried into the operation room as soon as he got to the hospital. Unfortunately, King Von, who was formerly Chicago's most violent and brave gang member, died during surgery, and the news of his death rocked the whole rap business. Unfortunately, he died. Officials revealed that one of the 3 individuals was Chicago rapper King Von, who was present last night with friends, making this a nationwide story. There was a physical altercation between 2 clusters of people. The physical altercation turned into a check-it-out exchange. Come on over and take a look at this Leah Von photo. This is a lot of operations, I know. I'll let you all know where I am. Man, why is this black truck still here? Keep an eye on that truck. Look at that truck over there.